Welcome to the WP Builds podcast, bringing you the latest news, interviews and fun for the WordPress community. Now, welcome your host, Nathan Wrigley. Hello there and welcome once again to the WP Builds podcast. You've reached episode number 450, entitled What Just Happened? Episode 5, WordPress in Transition 6.9, Trademark Battles and AI. And surely you won't find a more pithy title anywhere online. It was published on Thursday the 18th of December 2025. My name's Nathan Wrigley, and a few bits of housekeeping just before we begin. The first thing to say is this is the last episode of the year 2025. I'm taking a couple of weeks off to spend some time with the family. If having holidays is your thing in your part of the world as well, I hope that you have a nice break. If not, I hope that you have a productive time. We'll be back in early January with some more podcast episodes and This Week in WordPress shows. They'll be available on the usual schedule. We'll drop things on a Tuesday, on a Thursday for the podcast, and This Week in WordPress live every Monday as well. I guess it would be wise for me to say that if you've still got money burning a hole in your pocket, WP Builds has our Black Friday page, and believe it or not, there's still loads of deals on there. I'll just say it once, head to wpbuilds.com/black to find out more. Now, this is a bit of a plea. If you would like to help keep the lights on over at WP Builds, we are actively looking for some sponsors. I would deeply appreciate anybody representing a company in the WordPress space. Doesn't really matter what you do. You know, it could be blocks, themes, plugins, hosting, whatever. I'd love to have a chat. If you email me at admin@wpbuilds.com, we can get into a chat of how we can put you in front of a WordPress-specific audience. We really do have a fairly large audience, and it's one of the best ways to represent your brand, gain notoriety, align yourself with WP Builds, and so on. So, yeah, admin@wpbuilds.com. Send us an email, and we'll get into a conversation about that. We'd love to help you with your product or service in the year 2026. Okay, what have we got for you today? Well, today I am chatting with Ray Moray. Ray Moray has the email newsletter called The Repository. I'm going to put some links into the show notes, but we link to many of her articles. The intention when we started this show, which we're calling What Just Happened, was to do an episode about every 3 months, but we got derailed. There was loads of stuff happening in the summer. And so we sort of missed a few months out there. But we're back. We recorded this just a few days ago. And so we're trying to sum up what's happened in the last 3, maybe 4, 5 months in the WordPress space. And honestly, there really is an awful lot to cover. So apart from the usual introductions, we talk about WordPress 6.9 and the forthcoming 7.0. We talk about real-time collaboration and the notes feature, which has just dropped. The hot topic of 2025, of course, was AI, and we get into that. Things like the Abilities API, how collaborative editing might be managed, how AI models might be managed in the future, the AI Experiments plugin. And then we talk about block themes, the partnership program in the WordPress space. There's, of course, the ongoing legal dispute. We get into that a little bit. And then some community stories, things like WordCamps. And then towards the end, we have a few lighthearted stories about the UK budget leak, which was a curious story which happened in the UK recently. So all of that is coming up next. If you don't hear from me soon, have a lovely holiday season, again, if that's your thing, and I hope you enjoy the podcast. Hello, Ray. How are you doing?
I'm good, Nathan. How are you?
Yeah, you weren't expecting quite such a cavalier approach to the beginning of this episode, were you?
I was not. I was not.
Yeah, I'm good. This is episode 5 of What Just Happened. So Ray Moray is joining me today, as she has done for 4 previous episodes, and we're going to try and sum up what's been happening in the WordPress space. The intention was to do this kind of every 3 months, but we fell off the wagon a little bit, so there's more to talk about. But never mind,
we did
that's
fall
all
off
good.
The wagon.
Yeah, so just for context, we're recording this in the middle of December 2025, so depending on when this drops, there may have been some, who knows, life-changing seismic event that we miss out entirely, but history shows that's unlikely.
Well, you never know. Certain
never know.
person took to Reddit on Christmas Eve last year, so you never know
okay.
what's
All
going to
right.
happen in the WordPress
things can happen
world.
in that case. So, Ray, just in case anybody hasn't listened to this, our audience sort of is a bit in flux. You know, some people join, other people leave, and so on. There may be people who don't know what you do. Just tell us a little bit about the repository, or really anything you like to do with yourself.
Well, my favorite color, no. So my name is Ray. I publish the repository. It's a news site dedicated to covering what's happening in the WordPress ecosystem. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I just write news stories about what's happening and also publish a weekly newsletter every Friday. Subscribe, like all that kind of stuff.
Subscribe.
Like and subscribe. And I don't use YouTube so
Figure
much.
out,
So.
dear listener, how to get the repository email into your newsletter inbox.
The repository.email
is
my annoying URL.
Oh, no, I think that's great.
Because I never fixed it.
Yeah. What would you do? Would you drop the at the beginning, or would you change the .email?
I love that as .com, but
Okay.
it's I've got repository.news as a domain, and I've never got around to fixing it because it was a newsletter for 5 years before it became a publication in its own right. So yep, it's just one of those annoying SEO things that I'm just going to have to live
with what you've got. Yeah, you've now built up an audience. Anyway, needless to say, go check it out. Pause this right now. Pause it. You haven't, have you? You haven't paused it. Now go pause it right away. The repository, those words, the repository, all as one word, .email. Go check it out and subscribe. I can more or less guarantee it is the best source of WordPress news out there. It's proper journalism written up just for you. So yeah, go and check that out. Anyway, Ray is here so that we can talk about the last few months. And we have this giant spreadsheet where we drop in a bunch of stories that have happened since we last spoke. And then we kind of cull them a little bit. We've probably been on the call for about an hour at this point, culling different things. And we've decided what we think is probably the most important stuff. There's a lot that we've left on the editing room floor, but nevertheless, let's make a start with something. And we'll go, I guess, let's start with the WordPress project itself. So we just had 6.9 drop. That actually happened really recently by pure coincidence. So we're going to talk about the different features in there. Is there anything that jumped out for you? I mean, we could just sort of rehash all of the things that have happened. That's probably not of great interest. What were some of the headline things that you liked?
Well, it was a big release because it was 8 months since WordPress 6.8, right? So I think one of the things about 6.8 was that there wasn't a lot in it. It felt like, let's get it out.
Like a maintenance kind of steady away release. Yeah.
It was. And I remember listening on a podcast or an interview somewhere where Matt Mullenweg said he was really disappointed, or I can't remember his exact words, but he was disappointed that there wasn't much in the release. And I think that might have spurred Automattic to unpause its contributions to WordPress. But anyway, 6.9 has a lot. I think, the headline features were notes. Notes is a big one. And previously called block commenting. So that's, I guess, the first step towards real-time collaboration. We're now seeing the command palette right across the WordPress dashboard, which is great for power users. There's also lots of improvements and enhancements to editing tools in the block editor for everyone who uses the block editor. I really enjoy using the block editor.
I do too, yeah.
And it's also great to see features like block visibility in the block editor too. That's a great one, and that's leading into work that will come in 7.0 around responsive controls.
Yep.
Something that I previewed this week on the repository. Other things, drag and drop. It's also
That's
worth
actually
mentioning.
really cool. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's such an obvious thing, but you can now kind of pick things up and you see them as they go to the place where they're going to go, as opposed to clicking some arrows and kind of, it sort of slides into
exactly.
you. Yeah, it's a nothing, but it's a something. Kind of makes it feel more
There's lots of
SaaS-like.
things. And also, it's definitely worth pointing out all of the performance stuff that Western Router's been working on. Hats off to him. He put a lot of work into that. Lots of things that are making WordPress faster. Oh, God, what else? Stretchy text. I haven't played with that yet.
Stretchy text, I can't quite ever see myself using, but a nice idea. If you've got that gap at the
It's a
top
nice
of your
design
page where you
thing.
just got to fill it up with text, stretchy text is your best friend.
Yeah, definitely.
I didn't know
what
what
else?
it was for a long time, and I was imagining all sorts of, elongated, almost like elasticated text that got pulled out. But I'm pleased to say that I now understand it. I think that the most interesting stuff in there for me is the notes thing. I probably, given the way that I use WordPress, I don't know if it's the same with you at the repository, but it's basically a site of one user, WP Builds. And so I won't really, unless I really get quite nerdy and leave notes for myself, which actually, now that I'm saying those words, I probably will. Now that those words have just come into my head.
Same.
But for Teams, I think this will be really great. It's kind of like preparing the groundwork for something much better to come in 7 and beyond, because all that you can do really at the moment is pick a block, comment on the block. It's not like Google Docs where you can highlight a couple of words and say, these words change these. No, you'd have to describe that. So if it's an image block, you can comment on the image. If it's a text block, you can comment on that and so on. But still,
Definitely.
pretty cool.
I have to digress for a minute. I've seen a lot of commentary, I guess in the agency community, from people who are like, so many sites are run by one person. Who's going to use notes? Who's going to use real-time collaboration? But then this week I dug into the results of the State of Enterprise WordPress survey that was released last week. And one of the findings from the survey was that a lot of the respondents to the survey have teams of 50 plus people who work on one WordPress site. So there are these huge teams at enterprise companies that are using WordPress, and they want these collaboration tools. What they're using at the moment, I don't know. I guess they're using Google Docs and lots of other tools, but for those kinds of WordPress users, real-time
I guess the
collaboration
curious
and
thing
even
is,
notes is going to be life-changing.
right,
Yeah.
you don't really know until that feature drops whether or not it's going to be of utility to people. And I imagine it will become quite interesting for teams, because they won't have to have that, I don't know, let's talk about this over on Slack or Discord or wherever it is. And when we get the next version in 7, whereby the intention is to make it more granular so that you might be able to pick up just individual portions of a block or what have you, or even like multiple blocks at the same time. So you might want to highlight 3 paragraph blocks or something like that. I think people will kind of grow into it. And if they're in WordPress all the time and that really is their editorial workflow, why would you need to go somewhere else? So this is the kind of thing I think nobody knows how useful it will be until they suddenly discover its utility. And then it probably will be something that you'll lean into. There's the whole thing with it at the moment. It doesn't really require a great deal of server power. The next iteration, that's going to be curious to see how that works and whether or not we end up with, I don't know, SaaS services or WordPress.com integrations or, I don't know, Jetpack or something like that, which binds into it to make that possible. They're even talking, aren't they, at the moment in the 7.0 documentation of limiting it to just 2 concurrent users or something like that. So that'll be curious to see.
Yeah,
see how that all
I saw
works.
that Matisse Ventura's kind of raised that in the 7.0 planning blog post that was published last week around, what is the baseline? He wanted to start a conversation around what are the baseline expectations, of, what real-time collaboration is going to offer. So there are a lot of technical challenges around delivering real-time collaboration. So it'll be interesting to see what's actually offered.
It was kind of interesting how that conversation has pivoted now to making it more of a hosting feature. So in other words, let's say you go to hosting company X and you have an account over there, it would be up to them to sort of facilitate the grunt, if you like, whatever the server needs to make that possible. And it might be, I can imagine that would be like a check mark on a form where you're buying your hosting, and you might say, okay, yeah, that's a feature I would like. Add in a couple of dollars a month or whatever it may be, and that will be something that the host might take care of. So that's kind of curious. Yeah, the drag and drop stuff was interesting. All of the, I mean, obviously we'll get into the AI stuff later, but there was an awful lot of groundwork being done. That's been kind of just drip feeding more or less constantly. So we'll put that one to one side. So yeah, there's absolutely loads in 6.9. It did feel like a fairly hefty release. And yeah, I think that's probably covered that, isn't it?
Yeah, I could talk about the release a bit more, but let's talk about that when we cover the state of the word.
Okay. In which case, we will sort of segue a little bit into AI in that case at the moment. Now, I've got to confess, the AI stuff, for me personally, because I'm a team of one and I just write the content myself and what have you, I'm curious about it, but I don't find myself in the weeds of it. So I have to look at it from a sort of an academic point of view. So forgive me, dear listener, if I kind of misstep or misstate whatever we're about to talk about. But the first one is, by the way, I'm going to put links into the show notes for all of the bits and pieces that we're talking. Largely, it will end up on the repository website. Many of the links will end up there because Ray's done reporting about it. But in some cases, we'll end up on, I don't know, the mate.wordpress.org website or something like that. So if we're talking about it, there'll be a link. If you go to wpbuilds.com and search for, I don't know, episode 5 with Ray, spelled R-A-E, by the way, then you'll be able to find these. So yeah, the next one, introducing the WordPress Abilities API. Shall I describe what I think that is, or do you want to do it? You can.
Yeah, take a stab.
Yeah, I'll take a stab. So imagine in a WordPress website, it can do all these things. So it can publish posts, you can create users, you can delete posts, you just imagine. There's like many, many, many different things that a WordPress site can do. And if you wanted to bind an AI to a WordPress site to achieve things, not just write content or make images or what have you. Let's say you want an AI to create a post, write it, then publish it. You need it to know how to publish things. It needs to have the ability to publish things. And this WordPress API is this kind of abstracted layer where all of the things that a WordPress website can do can be understood by an AI, and thereby it can be achieved by an AI. My understanding also is it's extensible, so a third-party plugin developer, for example, would be able to introduce their own abilities because they have, I don't know, courses or something like that, and you want to be able to publish courses instead of posts. And so all of that becomes available. And in this way, WordPress is kind of aligning itself in a future of AI where it's not the AI agent, but it's just this in-between layer where you use WordPress as the place to do all of your AI, but it's not actually doing, it's going off to some third-party thing like ChatGPT or Gemini or what have you. And so that's what I think the Abilities API is. Do you think I've kind of got that about right, or have I missed the mark there?
Yeah, I think so. It's basically a central registry of what a WordPress, of abilities that a WordPress site can do, that allows AI to understand what it can actually carry out on the site. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess we've heard a lot about the Abilities API in, at Stay the Word and all of these blog posts and things coming out of the AI team, but it is quite a developer-y thing that's hard to kind of succinctly, briefly capture in a couple of sentences. So people haven't really understood what it's all about.
Yeah. I guess it's one of those things that once people start using it, it'll become much more obvious. But if you've got an AI that can only create content or improve content or summarize content or whatever it may be, then that's the end of the road. Whereas this feels, I could be wrong about this, but it does feel like it's fairly industry leading. So, in the content creation space, this kind of... this ability to have an API which sits between the AI agent and you, the user, I think it's a really forward-thinking way of deploying it. So WordPress itself can't be accused of, I don't know, deploying AI directly. It's not like automatic or behind the AI agent itself. It's just this layer in the middle which exposes everything that a WordPress website can do so that the AI can do it. Now, whether or not that's desirable for you and the stuff that you produce and the websites that you make, maybe not. But it's going to be capable of doing those things in the future. And I imagine there was quite a lot of work trying to figure out, well, what is it that a WordPress website can do? When you get into the weeds, I expect you can do a heck of a lot more than you would imagine.
I think, I think the person really driving this has been James LePage.
Yeah.
And I think the Abilities API is something that he wished was in WordPress years ago. And now that he's leading AI at Automattic and also a co-rep of the WordPress AI team, he's been able to drive this and actually get it into WordPress. It was interesting at the State of the Word when he said, sorry, overflowing into the next segment.
It's all right.
But, it was interesting when he said that if you'd asked him, this time last year, if WordPress would be, where it is with AI today, he was like, probably not. But he's now leading a lot of that work together with, other members of the AI team. And so it's interesting to see where WordPress is. And also what's planned for 7.0 as far as, the workflows API goes, and possible integration with the WP AI client. All of these very AI things that the team's going to have to explain really well to the community to get people to actually use it. It was interesting this week or last week when the team published a series of 3 posts, I guess kind of appealing to the community to start exploring these AI APIs. And also, interestingly, asking hosts to consider, including AI models with their hosting packages.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. That is curious, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen. I've been following the WordPress AI team's, regular meetings and figuring out how to provide AI models to users has been something that they've been trying to work through. How do they, bridge that gap as far as, providing the interface for people to use AI with WordPress, but then connect to these models, and they hadn't quite figured it out yet. But then I guess this is the solution that they're coming up with.
Because it's interesting
to step in.
So somebody like you or I, who are sort of in the tech world, probably fully understand that there's all these AI models. You go and you get an account with OpenAI or what have you, and then somewhere buried in the settings is this little API key, and you can pop that into any app. But I imagine for the typical, and I'm doing air quotes, the typical user, that genuinely might be a step too far. They don't want to do that. That's kind of slightly confusing. And if there's just a checkbox inside of your hosted WordPress website, again, you're with hosting company X, they've provided something inside the admin area which says, yes, I authorize you to send my content to the AI model that you've got. You just tick a box, press save, and it's already done. That feels like a really sensible way of getting traction for it. Because I think despite the fact that, you and I are into tech, so that just seems like such a small hurdle. Honestly, I think a lot of people, that's more of a hurdle than they want. They don't want to give a credit card detail to some other third-party website that they've never heard of. Just, I'm already paying for my hosting. I'll just add another few dollars and I'll get the AI capabilities that way. Curious, isn't it? That it's kind of, everybody's talking about AI like it's already embedded. I don't think it's already embedded for most people on planet Earth. It's just the sort of more nerdy side of people at the moment, I think.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated to see how this hosting conversation goes, because there are already a few people in the comments of the AI team's post that were like, we're not really sure about this. There needs to be more public and community discussion around, this conversation around how we're embedding AI, but also why are we doing it? And somebody asked about policies around ethics, and there's just still a lot that needs to be discussed and debated.
Yeah.
And so that's all going to be happening next year.
Yeah, I think it's kind of it's going to be an interesting year, 2026. Well, 2025 kind of feels like it couldn't be more AI, but maybe 2026 really will be more AI. And then, of course, there's this whole phalanx of people who thinks the whole thing is a house of cards and is going to collapse because the venture capital money isn't going to be repaid and yada, yada, yada. So certainly, whichever way it flips or flops, 2026 will be an interesting year. But I kind of feel really happy with the way that the AI team have pivoted, in that they've made it so that they are agnostic to whichever AI company, client, API, whatever you want to call it, is. Yep. They're just building the infrastructure. And there's loads more. There's like all this MCP stuff. I'll link to Ray's post and you can go and check out more. And then the next one, I don't really know much about this plugin. It's the AI Experiments plugin. It looks like it's in an early version at the moment. I don't honestly even know what that's purporting to do. I'm hoping that you do.
I wrote a story about it, but going to have to quickly scan it to
remind
myself,
okay.
because I write so many stories.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
So the AI Experiments plugin is basically one of the AI team's 4 building blocks. So there was the Abilities API, the WordPress AI client, SDK, the MCP adapter, and this AI Experiments plugin. So basically, it's a new canonical plugin that gives contributors a space to test experimental AI-powered features in WordPress, similar to the Gutenberg plugin. And so the AI team had promised these building blocks, and they were all released by the time that 6.9 came out. So with this plugin, this was the last of the 4 building blocks, and this has really been spearheaded by Jeffrey Paul. He's a really long time core contributor, and interestingly, he works for Fueled, which is the company's he works for 10up, Fueled's WordPress practice. I have to keep remembering how to explain that. But as part of 10up, his team led the work on the Classifier plugin. And I don't know if you've heard about that, but Classifier is a plugin that 10up created for their enterprise publishing clients, and it allows features like AI-powered. It's an AI powered plugin that allows features like title generation, excerpt generation, creating images, all these kinds of things, which have also been proposed for the AI Experiments plugin. So the first feature of this plugin has been title generation, and from what I've heard, the team that's worked on Classify at Fueled and 10up has been advising the developers who've been working on this AI Experiments plugin. So a lot of the features that we're seeing in Classify there's going to be some form of those in the AI Experiments plugin.
Right.
I actually use Classify on the repository website, and I love it. I don't use all of the features, but one of my favorites is if I upload an image to the media library in WordPress, it automatically, Classify automatically writes an
alt text
description, image
like
description, alt text. So you can tweak in the settings at Classify the settings for that, and it just automates the whole process. It makes it so easy to makes it easier to make your site more accessible. I love that feature, so I hope that comes to the AI Experiments plugin.
I'm kind of hoping that that's where AI takes us. Is it gets us somewhere where it gets rid of repetitive tasks that you need to do, but with the best will in the world, the constraints of time mean that they often don't get done. So as an example, alt text on images, easily forgotten. But if you know that it's going to be doing that for you, I guess you can browse and have a look and see whether it's accurate or not. That's kind of where I hope AI lands.
Yeah.
Not entirely sure that I want it to be creating all the content and writing things for us, and then we just go back and check that it's actually accurate. That doesn't, for me at least anyway, that doesn't seem like a particularly bright future. But the idea of automating a lot of those kind of things seems really useful. And you can imagine, I don't know, the editorial team, it would automate the process of contacting people to say, Ray's written a post, go and check it out. It needs to be checked for before publishing and things like that. All of that seems like a really good use of AI. But anyway, 2026, we'll find out. If there is a 2027, we'll know it wasn't cataclysmic.
Oh, geez. Yeah, we'll see. But I also want to give a shout out to Tammy Lister. She created a plugin that is called the Abilities Explorer, and that's going to be in an upcoming version of the AI Experiments plugin. It basically it provides an interface where you can see all of the abilities that are on a website, abilities that you've added to the registry via the Abilities API. So
right.
So yeah, she contributed.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea, isn't it? Because then it puts it into a human readable format as opposed to it just being something ephemeral somewhere that you don't really know how to access. If you can see all of the different bits and pieces, you'll probably get some intuition as, oh, I could do that. Never thought of that because now it's exposed in some sort of interface. Yeah, thank you. Tammy's been a great proponent for AI. She's constantly trying to persuade me that the sky is not falling in. And, she succeeds, and then I go and read something else, and the sky's suddenly falling in again.
That's the problem. You're reading too much. But I should mention the AI team has a really great roadmap on GitHub for the AI Experiments plugin. So they've already planned out a lot of what they want to release over the next year. Not in great detail, but they've already flagged features that are coming up, which is definitely worth a look at for anyone who's interested in seeing what they're working on.
Yeah, so we will link to, there's a couple of places there. We'll link to a make.wordpress.org, but also a repository article about that. So that on our show notes here, Ray, that was line 7. I feel like line 8, which is about phase 3, I feel like we've done that. We could probably move on from that one.
Yeah, and looking at the time, we're already like halfway through the episode.
Yeah, that's okay. We're all good. We've made it to line 7 of about 30. Okay, let's speed it up a little bit. The next one is we're moving into the themes territory, block-based themes, and don't know if you've been keeping an eye, dear listener. There doesn't seem to have been the great amount of traction in terms of block-based themes that it was hoped there would be. I think a lot of people are still using classic themes with absolutely no intention of moving over. However, in the theming space, there does seem to be one character. Zooming ahead, I obviously can't speak for every theme, but one seems to be making a lot of headway, doing all the marketing right, building a fantastic product, and so much so that you wrote a whole article about it. And this is Ollie. However, the point in question here is not just Ollie, the theme. It's about some of the bits and pieces that Mike McAllister is doing around the Ollie theme. So as an example, he's got this menu designer, which allows you to use the WordPress block editor, create your mobile menu or, I don't know, mega menu or whatever it is that you want to build. I've used it. I think it's absolutely great. But he's also building things like he's just released his CSS editor, which enables you to take care of all the CSS. Now, I know that you can do that in a myriad of ways, but if you just want one interface, you can do that inside of his nice, shiny new CSS editor, and it's got some bells and whistles which make it fairly compelling. You're obviously a fan, I'm guessing.
I am a fan.
Yeah.
The repository runs on Ollie.
Yay.
Yeah, I think what Mike is doing is fantastic. He's a really great spokesperson for WordPress and the block editor in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
He's great with marketing. And I guess a lot of people think, and this is something I covered on another podcast, but, marketing and telling your brand story shouldn't be something that's a lot of work. For people like Mike, it's just being yourself on social media and recording fun videos, and he makes it look so effortless. I'm sure he puts a lot of work into it, but he's very good at making it look effortless. Anyway, so he's created this. He created a premium version, or not premium, but a menu designer that was included for Ollie customers.
It's called Ollie Pro, I think. I think it's,
Yeah, for Ollie Pro users. And he's basically contributed the menu designer to WordPress. And so what's happened is Mike met with a bunch of core committers and people from Automatic, and the menu design has been flagged for core. And Mike's talking to developers at Automatic who are going to help shepherd it into core. So
That's really cool.
hats off to Mike, but also hats off to Automatic for putting up developers to help do that work, because as Mike has said, it can take years. Like what he's done is the easy part, creating the feature, and it's going to take years probably to get this feature into core if past precedent's anything to go by. Hopefully it doesn't take that long. It'd be great if we could get in sooner.
Kind of interesting. I mean, he's just been his authentic self, and I think I've got to confess that right at the beginning when he launched Ollie, I was kind of curious. How do you sell a WordPress theme in the era of full site editing or site editing? Because really, like the thing that Theme shipped with was kind of features, so it did archives and it handled those well, and all of those kind of little bits and pieces. It handled menus and things like that. Whereas in a block-based theme, all of that stuff is kind of laid bare. You can build that yourself. You don't need to have an IDE or understand PHP or any of that. And yet, by just keeping on, shipping a bunch of really beautiful designs, and now these new features like the CSS editor and the menu designer, well, that's how you do it, it turns out. And so not skepticism, I was always hopeful that he'd succeed, but it wasn't always obvious that he would. And I bet, if he's being honest, there's probably been times when he's looked at himself in the mirror and thought, what? Is this ever going to take off? Well, I feel maybe 2026 is the year in which it really does. It's the only block-based theme, where I'm sitting at least anyway, that anybody's talking about. Anybody is talking about. Maybe there's other ones, but I don't hear anything about it. So, and getting that shipped into core.
You've blocked them all out.
What's that?
You've blocked all the other ones out.
That's right. Yeah, that's probably it. Yeah.
Ollie just makes things easy. But look, good on him. I think it's great, and it'd be great to see the menu designer in core. I think it's about time. WordPress hasn't had some decent.
I mean, there's so many things.
Some way to do with navigation.
Yeah, so many things which a typical user would still cherish being in core, and this is just one of them. And honestly, when did full site editing land? A long time ago, and having basic menus is interesting. Okay. All right, next one then, line 12 is Global Partner Program announcement. Again, it's going to be linked to from the repository. I didn't kind of parse this story. There was some more recent change, I think, in terms of the pricing or the way that you could become a global partner. So global partners are the big hitters, I guess, the people that have got deep pockets, enough to spend lots of dollars on having their product or service out in front of the entire WordPress community. There's some caveats around that, but they get to call themselves a global partner. They get featured at lots of WordPress events by default. By paying that money, they're already inserted as a kind of top tier on many of the meetups and the flagship events. Actually, I'm not sure that some of those things are included, but anyway, so what's happened recently with this?
I'm just trying to remember who was a global partner last year. I feel like a lot of them were Automatic brands, probably WordPress.com.
Yeah. At WordCamp US, that whole
and all of that
thing felt like an Automatic thing. There was a lot of Automatic, you're right, yeah.
And I think from memory, there would have been WP Beginner. Anyway, definitely, they definitely spent their money well, because I remember all of them. So last year, WordPress charged a flat fee of $160,000 for sponsorship packages. But this year, their program has reintroduced a tiered a breakdown of fees. So now at the top end, companies can pay $180,000 for, visibility everywhere. And then the second tier is $110,000, and then at the lower end there's $60,000 for visibility at education events like WordPress Campus Connect. Yeah, it's interesting to see this change, especially at the lower end being 60 grand after last year, the fee being 160. And I messaged, I reached out to Harmony Romo, who she's a finance wrangler for Automatic and the WordPress Foundation, and she said that the goal is to open up opportunities for more companies to join the Global Partner Program. And she said, we feel that folks get a lot of value in each tier for the cost. So they're looking to appeal to more companies. And I just wonder in this, the landscape we're in at the moment, if they're struggling to find sponsors, especially after all the hoo-ha with all the trademarks over the past year and asking companies, like there was a big deal after Patchstack was rejected last year to sponsor. Was it WordCamp Europe or WordCamp Europe?
I think
BG?
you're right. I can't quite recall. I remember that it was a thing, but I don't remember which event it was bound to. Yeah,
and also I think companies have been asked about their Five for the Future contributions as well. So, there were questions there around companies. Has WordPress struggled to get more sponsorship this year?
I think 2026 and sponsorship in the WordPress space is going to be really interesting. So I know that you have sponsors, I have sponsors. I also am involved in an event in London which has sponsors, and it's definitely tighter than it has been in the more recent past. I feel like we were riding this wave of, constant growth, constant innovation, constant chatter. Sponsors, the companies were doing well, and so the money was sort of sloshing around and what have you. I feel like maybe the revenue for these companies haven't dried up, but it looking into the future, the crystal ball gazing, it feels like 2026 could be an interesting year. And I feel like the wallets are closing a little bit, and maybe this is a consequence of that. They're just trying to figure out where, offering a cheaper price point might encourage some people to come in. I feel like the AI thing is sort of sucking so much oxygen out of the room that nobody knows how that's going to land. And that's an interesting piece of the puzzle. And obviously you've got, just sort of geopolitics and all of that fun stuff getting into the mix as well. So it feels like that ebullient phase that we had from, 2022, 2023, 2024 and 5 feels like maybe that's a little bit more under question, and companies are being a little bit more introspective and, making sure that every penny that they spend counts.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess, not even in recent months, throughout this year, we've seen layoffs at various companies. I won't dig into all the details, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out as well in the coming months as we get into 2026.
Yep.
Anyway, watch the space.
I think
I
you're
guess
right.
we'll
I've
talk more in our next update.
Yeah, I've spoken to quite a few people in the recent past who have definitely got intuitions that their company is having thoughts about things like layoffs. And even if that turns out not to be true, the psychological impact of that gets felt, doesn't it? You sort of question whether or not your job is safe, and so you question whether or not you need to be looking for a new job. And I guess that moves into the partnership, sponsorship arena as well. Maybe we're just entering a different phase. I'm sure these things go in cycles. So if we do have a bit of a downturn, I'm sure that we'll have an upturn at some point in the future. But yeah, certainly that's the case for now. All right, let's pivot a little bit. We're going to go into some of the legal stuff. I've got to say, I read the bits and the pieces that you put together, and I often click on the link to some of the things, and I can't remember the properties, but I think it's things like Court Listener, which is a website of incredible... Oh, I don't know what the word is. You've got to be a certain character to be able to enjoy that website, put it that way. But you get into it and you pull out all the details. And so I don't know if you enjoy that or not, but I commend you for actually taking the time to do it.
Court Listener is great because it provides a free portal for people to read documents that are filed with the courts in the US.
The thing for me, though, is the language. It's amazing. I guess your familiarity with it and just keeping going back, maybe it makes it more easy to read. But I just get stuck on the language and I can't parse the sentences. And so I give up.
I think it helps. I used to do court reporting in a previous life
That'll
as a
certainly
journalist.
Yeah.
But also I think because I've read so many documents in the WP Engine versus Automatic case this year, I'm just so familiar with it. And it also depends on the law firm that's writing the documents. They have different styles. So Quinn Emanuel, that's representing WP Engine, I quite enjoy reading their documents. They're good. And also Gibson Dunn, that's now representing Automatic, and Matt Mullenweg. They're quite good too. I think it was Hogan Lovells who was representing Automatic previously. They were awful. They were so boring to read. There was just no life. I hated it. Every time they filed something, I just dreaded having to read through the documents because they were so dry and boring. But now it feels like, Gibson Dunn and Quinn Emanuel like are really well matched to fight this out.
Okay,
just going off the.
That's such a fascinating insight, though. Okay, so I'm just going to completely segue for a minute. Is there like a PR angle for writing that stuff then? In other words, if tech journalists are reading it, the easier it is to read, the more likely their version of the event is going to get taken up. And so making engaging and interesting, whilst not strictly necessary, is helpful for the PR battle, if not the actual legal battle in court. That's really interesting.
100%. Because if you're just not going to win the side, you're not going to win over journalists or just the general public if you nobody can decipher what you're writing. But sometimes when I read through the documents, I'm like, oh yeah, that was really good phrasing. I'm definitely going to quote that because as journalists, you're constantly looking for something that's quotable. Something's going to jump out in a story.
Yeah.
It's
certainly delving into your inner nerd. And I can say fairly categorically, I'm assuming this is true, we are very grateful that you enjoy that content because I suspect that 99.9% of the listeners to this will not be able to gain much satisfaction from it. And if you're me, I don't even understand it. So give us what are we, like 6-7 months since we last spoke? What's happened in the last 3 months? Let's go for something like that.
A lot and not a lot. So to recap recent months, I've just written a bit of a list here so I don't miss anything. So I guess that the headline story would be that the WordPress Foundation and WooCommerce have been pulled in to join Automatic and Matt Mullenweg in their countersuit against WP Engine. So this all comes down to the trademark stuff. I don't really want to delve into that too much.
It's okay. We can do a light coating of that. Okay.
So basically, it's interesting now that the foundation has been, and WooCommerce have been named in the case. Now, WP Engine is trying to have, I think, I can't remember all the details exactly, but anyway, WP Engine has filed to dismiss Automatic's counterclaims. Surprise, surprise. And then on the flip side, Automatic and Co. have filed to dismiss WP Engine's antitrust claims. So currently, now that the government shutdown has finished in the US, there was a bit of a pause in proceedings, I guess. Once the government shutdown happened, the court didn't have the resources to carry on the case, so they shut things down for a few weeks. But as the day that the government reopened, both sides filed documents. They did not waste a second. So this is all very much in play now. So they're both like countering each other. But the latest news, I guess, is that the deadline for discovery has been pushed out to March 2026. So both sides are, digging into each other's documents and emails and doing depositions. And the jury trial was originally scheduled for February 2027, but now that's been pushed back to June 2027. So I don't imagine. I'm not super familiar. I haven't reported a lot on US court cases, but I don't imagine this will be the last time that the schedule changes.
Okay.
Imagine if this goes into 2028.
Yeah, I mean, to
Oh,
me,
my gosh.
the whole process seems so drawn out. But maybe this is presumably just how the legal system works, and it's complicated, and you need to have both sides plenty of time to weigh these things up. I can only imagine how expensive this is now becoming.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
extremely so. Okay, so we'll wait. We've got to wait until at least March next year before anything substantive happens when the deadline for discovery has been
I think
reached.
there might be a hearing in January. There's
Okay.
definitely one scheduled for March, but yeah, guess we'll have to wait and see what happens next.
It's kind of interesting as well,
ongoing.
because I imagine most people have lost sight of what is even being argued about now, because obviously the catalyst for that thing in WordCamp US 2024 was the moment where most people kind of engaged with it, I suspect, and they formed their opinions around that time. And obviously a lot has changed since then, and thankfully people like you are keeping your eye on the ball. But yeah, okay, more waiting to be done. Let's see see exactly what happens. And then there's another legal story, this time though all to do with the use of things like the words managed WordPress and hosted
Yeah.
WordPress. This is a US thing. I don't know
So
if it's
if-
global or not. I don't know how this works.
It is. So for anyone who hasn't been following this as closely as me, the WordPress Foundation filed to trademark hosted WordPress and managed WordPress, to those two phrases, in July 2024. And this kind of came out, I guess, more publicly around the time of, all the hoo-ha that was happening around that followed WordCamp US 2024. But anyway, so what happened was the foundation filed for those phrases in several jurisdictions around the world. So the US, the EU, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada. Those were the main areas. And so the foundation has successfully registered those trademarks in the UK, Australia, the EU, and is currently those trademark applications are still currently underway in the US, Canada, and New Zealand. So at the moment, there's been in the US, the trademark applications have been published. So what happens with trademarks is that once the what are they called? The trademark reviewer? I can't remember their proper role. Once the trademark has been reviewed and it's determined that it's not clashing with another trademark or there aren't any issues that should just prevent it from being registered, it's published in this trademark gazette, and that kicks off a 30-day period. This is in the US, a 30-day period where anyone who doesn't believe that the trademark should be registered can oppose it. Before that was even published, there were 3 organisations or individuals that opposed those trademarks in the US. So those were taken into consideration, and the trademark reviewer decided no big deal, moved on. But in the meantime, WP Engine has stepped in to seek extra time to oppose these applications in the past 2-3 weeks. That extension was granted by the Trademark Trial and Appeal Board, and Quinn Emanuel, that name again, is representing WP Engine, and I imagine that they're going to lodge a formal opposition pretty soon. So I dug into this a little bit. Opposition proceedings in the US, when a company opposes a trademark, this usually runs for 1 to 3 years or more.
Oh, gosh.
So there's no guarantee that hosted WordPress and managed WordPress are going to be filed anytime soon. And seeing some of not the stalling tactics, but seeing what the tactics that are happening in the US District Court with how Quinn Emanuel has been approaching the legal proceedings there, seeing how they operate there and how this could happen, this will work out in the trademark arena. I don't imagine anything's going to be tied up within 1 year. It's going to take a while. WP Engine, interestingly, is also challenging the trademark applications in New Zealand. So they did that back in June this year, and that's ongoing. And I can't find out any more publicly about that one because that's all done behind closed doors. But yeah, so we'll see. And also in Canada, the trademarks are currently I think they've been approved and they're about to be published for opposition. So I imagine I wouldn't be surprised if WP Engine also challenged them there as well. But I don't know why it didn't happen in the EU or UK, Australia. So anyway.
Yeah, I'm not an expert. Maybe there's something more ironclad about the decision that's been made or something. I'm not entirely sure.
Anyway,
I'm very glad that you take an interest in this because then people like me don't have to wade through all of that sort of stuff. 2 links then, both going to the repository, will be in the show notes outlining both of those bits and pieces. Okay, so we'll put the legal stuff behind us. Then we're on to our little final section, I guess, which we're calling community. There's quite a few bits in here. The first one, I suppose we probably should have done with AI, but we put it in the community section anyway. This is Telex. This just dropped out the blue. I was at WordCamp US, and right at the end in the sort of final address, Matt mentioned Telex, and I confess I'd not heard of it until that point. It was obviously something that had been
launched it there.
Yeah. Oh, was that the official launch? Yeah, because
that was the first time he's mentioned it.
Yeah, he did it in a very you know what I mean. When you watch like an Apple event, when they launch something, they really launch something. You're under no illusions that this is new and exciting and the best thing that's ever happened ever. And that was not this. It was very much we got this thing and it's Telex and you can go and check it out and play with it. So I kind of assumed that other people maybe already knew about it, but it's this. It's getting better and better. Well, better and better in the sense that it's becoming more usable and useful. So it's this AI agent currently hosted at automatic.ai. I think it's telex.automatic.ai. It's a chat interface, but you prompt it and then it will build the thing and then it will launch Play. I think this is the secret fun bit. It will then launch an instance of Playground and put the block that it's created, because it's for creating blocks. It will put the block in it, so that you can inspect it right off the bat, and you can use the WordPress backend. You can look at the code that it's created, and yada yada yada. We actually used it last week at the event in London. So WPLDN. We used that as the mechanism for our festive edition, and we had a team of developers. So a team versus a solo developer. So we had Mark Westgard from WS Form, he was the solo, and then we had the Filter team, and they were building silly festive blocks. Man, it was fascinating because it is powerful. Like all AI, you can clumsily stumble across the perfect prompt, or you can try really hard and get absolutely diabolical results. It's a bit of a lottery, but I don't know what the utility of it is. I don't really know how people are going to, make hay out of this, but it's certainly a curious experiment, if nothing else. It's free at the moment as well, so there's no kind of inhibition to trying it out. I don't know if you've got anything you want to add, but that's my thoughts.
No, I just, I've a couple of things. It's interesting to see how it's been picked up by news sites like TechCrunch.
Oh, yeah, okay.
They when Matt originally announced it at WordCamp US, they immediately picked it up as a story, and then it was also written about following State of the Word. Rather than write about State of the Word, TechCrunch wrote about Telex being mentioned at State of the Word. So there was like a little bit of bit about WordPress and Say the Word, but mostly they report on Telex. So I just wonder, the cynical part of me is like, is Automatic getting ahead and contacting journalists about Telex and trying to really drum it up?
Yeah, or maybe these organisations.
Looking out. Or is TechCrunch looking out for this kind of tech?
Yeah,
I'm probably going to think the former, but I think it's really fascinating to see how it's being covered by the media and the marketing around it from that sense. But also it's just a fun tool. I've played with it, not a lot, but just to see what I'm not a developer. I've done some development in the past, but not anymore. I'm so out of it. But it's interesting what you can build with it with a few prompts, and how annoying it can be to try and find the right prompt.
Yeah.
But when you do land on something, yeah, it's interesting. And I thought it was really cool that Tammy did Blocktober as well.
Yes.
And came up with something every day.
Yeah.
I imagine she must have banged her head on the wall quite a lot of times.
Can you imagine? How much hit the floor?
Prompts.
Yeah. But it's really fascinating.
Cool
and I can tell you that if you know what you're doing, a few minutes, like our little rounds in this thing that we did, they were 10 minutes long. That was from the moment we told them what they needed to build to the moment they were going to show off the final results.
Wow.
And in some cases it was, a bit of a miss, but in many cases it was a total hit, and it was what probably would have been days and days of developer work done in 4 minutes.
So what did they build?
So it was festive. So it was things like build an advent calendar. Mm-hmm. So the prompt might have been build an advent calendar. We did build a Christmas builder, so that you could build like a snowman or build a Santa Claus or build a whatever, all within a block. And with configuration options, so for example, marks, you could change the shape of the nose of the snowman, or you could change the width of the body, and just did it all.
Wow.
And it was incredible. So it was all gimmicky, fun stuff like that. But nevertheless, it served to demonstrate what was possible. And you can see the code being generated, this little panel at the bottom where you see the code rolling by, and it's a lot. It's absolutely loads. And the intuitions that it gets right are pretty phenomenal. Like I said, I don't know if you'd be able to actually reliably ship them, but it certainly gives you an idea of what's possible. Sadly, we didn't video it. It would have been fun if we did.
Oh, that would have been fun.
Yeah. We were all tied up doing other things. And because it was the Christmas one and didn't really have any, what's the word? Normally there's an educational spin on it, so you can learn how to do something. This would have just been, watching people type things into telex. Not a lot of learning there. So we decided not to video, but it was a heck of a lot of fun, I can tell you that. Okay, let's move on. Taco Verdonschot wrote a piece which he entitled WordPress's flagship WordCamp strategy is a mess and 2026 will be hell. I think the takeaway from this, he wasn't mincing his words.
He was not. Tell us how you feel, Taco.
I think his takeaway from this was that everything's been constrained in time. So typically flagship events, so WordCamp Asia, WordCamp Europe, WordCamp US are kind of spread out over the year. And if memory serves, I haven't read that article since he wrote it, but if memory serves, in the year 2026, I think they've all been truncated into this 4-month period. And his central argument, I think, was that if you're, let's say, for example, that you're paid by your company to go, well, that's one thing. You'll have your stuff paid for, you'll show up, it'll be a constraint on time, but it will be only that. Whereas if you're organising yourself to go, then that's a lot to take care of in a small amount of time. It might be that funds don't allow. And really, it's just a lot happening. So I think the thrust of his argument was maybe there needs to be a more cohesive strategy, spread out over the year. The events talk to each other and make sure. But I suspect they're all autonomous and they just do what they want. I don't really know. But that was the central thrust of it. There's not really much more to develop on that one, unless you've got something you want to say.
No, it'd be interesting to see. I don't know. I don't know if the events talk to each other much. There's definitely, it's definitely hard for events to find the right date. And I think whatever date they pick, there's going to be an issue.
Well, certainly this year.
Every event has an issue. Yeah. All of the events have had issues.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say it's unlucky that the events have been squished together. I don't know if it's 4 months. I think it might be 5 month period.
You could be right. Anyway, X number of months.
But there's definitely a lot of issues around. I think as you were talking about as we talked about before with sponsorship, there's definitely purses being tightened in 2026, and that definitely was a reason behind why WordCamp US is in Phoenix, of all places, in August. I don't think they would have, if the money was there, it would have been held at a different time for sure. So,
what is the intuition there, that time of year in that location is a more affordable time of year for event hire?
Absolutely.
Okay.
No one's organising events in 40 plus degree. I'm talking in centigrade. No one's organising events in August in Phoenix, the hottest time of year, because it's definitely a cost saving. And if you look at, totally digressing, but if you look at how many companies sponsored WordCamp US this year compared to last year, you can see that WordCamp US this year was definitely a money loser. So I reckon there would have been, won't go into it too much, but that definitely would have been a consideration for booking Phoenix in August next year, saving money.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, links in the show notes. Go check it out. You can see what Taco he's representing. It's on the Progress Planner website, which is who he now works with. So go check that out. And then WordCamp Canada. Did you attend that? Were you there for that?
No, I didn't. I don't know if we could go into this too much, but really just wanted to give it a shout out because it seemed like such a great event. They really did something different around. I loved how the organisers, really created this event that catered to the old schoolers like Dave Weiner, who invented, creator of the RSS, but also they held it at a university and really opened their doors to students, and created this fantastic multi-generational event where they had people who are new to WordPress that they invited along, who were able to learn from people who've been in the industry for decades. I think it was fantastic.
I felt that when the first iteration of WordCamp Canada had finished, I felt like maybe that event was going to be in trouble for following events, because it looked like the attendance was quite poor. Forgive me if you were in any way connected with that, but that's just the optics from the outside.
Yeah.
However, this it's a lesson in just sort of keeping on. This following one, the following year, 2025, it seems like a bit of a barnstormer. It seems like they just got so many things right. Lots of favourable coverage, lots of people sort of tweeting out and pictures, and just a general sense of excitement about this one. So hopefully that momentum will carry on, and 2026 they'll have something similar.
Absolutely.
Okay, the next one is just, I'm going to do this really quickly. It's just a bit of fun, and it only applies to people in the UK. Only people in the UK will care. Yeah, well, it's actually not fun, but it's kind of fun. We have this thing in the UK called the budget, and it happens twice a year, and it's when the politicians make the big decisions about the next 6 months' money. And it happens in Parliament, and the Chancellor of the Exchequer stands up in front of Parliament and delivers what is hoped to be a secret. And all of this stuff just flows out of their mouth. And then we know what the next 6 months hold in terms of taxation, business rates, pensions, the lot. And people obsess about it. And it's normally very, very secretive. However, this year, about 2 hours before the announcement, the document which contained all of the details, which should have gone live at the exact moment the Chancellor stood up, it leaked. It came out 2 hours early. And so for 2 hours, the money markets had advanced knowledge of what this was. And it turns out it was a WordPress website. And the person who had uploaded the document had just assumed that if you uploaded, I think in this case it was a PDF of a breakdown of all of this information, that if you uploaded a PDF and it was bound to a scheduled post, that document would be invisible to the public until it was scheduled. But that's not how the WordPress Media Library works. If you can guess the URL, if it's uploaded, then it's available. And so what they'd done was they'd created an identical document to the March version of the budget, But in November, and in the URL, in the title of the document, they'd simply substituted the word November for March. Therefore, journalists could guess it, and they did, and the sky fell in. Like major figures in the UK space resigned as a result of this. You know, heads actually rolled. Seriously important people were forced to resign. And so a bit of a storm in a teacup, certainly quite interesting if you're in the UK. WordPress was kind of responsible, but kind of not. Really, it was a misunderstanding of how WordPress works. So WordPress behaved as it should.
This story's crazy. I love it because it was just such a simple thing.
Yeah.
That we've all probably tried. We all know how the URLs work, right?
Yeah.
But that this mistake was responsible for all of this happening on the share market and everything in the UK.
I would imagine that people armed with this knowledge, you know how the money markets work, milliseconds count. I would imagine people that caught sight of this a few moments before other people did were probably able to, do really well for themselves financially.
I had a look through the so we're going to cover this quickly, but anyway, I had a look through there was a report investigating what happened, and I had to read through it. They said what time was the budget?
I think it's supposed to be 1 o'clock.
Midday or
maybe
okay.
It was 11 and it leaked at 9, or it was at 1 and it leaked at 11. Yeah,
I can't remember. The first successful download came at 11:35 of this particular document. That's when somebody guessed the URL. And then within 6 minutes, Reuters had published a news alert. I love that. And then in total, the document was accessed 43 times from 32 different devices before the file was finally taken down at, I think, within half an hour.
But presumably it was spread in multiple different ways. The minute it reached the Reuters computer, for example, then it was on everybody's computer from that moment on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really curious. Quickly. Really curious. Like, you imagine that 6 minutes before Reuters got it, if you had it, you could react in really interesting ways, I would have thought. Anyway, just a fascinating, curious thing. Next time, Office of Budget Responsibility, upload the document and then rename the file and get a cat to walk across the keyboard. And that nobody will
do all the things.
Yeah, nobody. That's right. But we got a cat. We did the cat thing and it was still discovered. That's what they'll say next time. Okay, state of the word, very quickly. Anything you want to add about this year's
state of the word?
It was very, very recently.
It was very recent. I was not anticipating seeing Matt Mullenweg bring out a big button to launch 6.9.
And actually, did you get to see Matt Mullenweg pull out a big button? Or like me, was the entire stream completely frozen?
Well, I was watching I got up early. I got up at 6:30 in the morning to watch the stream at 7 o'clock.
Oh, Ray, this says so much about you.
I went and got I made my coffee, got my breakfast. I was sitting down to watch it, and it didn't work.
No, it didn't work.
No. So got to spend more time with my son in the morning before we went off to kinder. Anyway. And then I hopped back on later on in the afternoon and watched 2 hours of the stream. So, I did see the button, but not in real time.
I wonder if the button actually did do what it purported to do. Like, did actually pressing that red button release WordPress 6.9, or was it a button made out of,
Well, it was funny because later in the stream, or not in the stream, in the video recording that I saw, Matt holds a button and he pretends to click it. And he's like, "Oh, I'm not actually launching it again." Didn't do anything.
I would love it. I think it would be so cool if that button literally did what it was supposed to. I'm guessing it was not in any way connected to anything, but
did you watch the video recording? Did you see what happened? So they had all of for those who didn't see,
they all leaned in.
They had a bunch of core contributors and release leads, core committers on stage, and they all leaned over together. Like, when you put your hands together and you go, "Go team," they all hit the button at the same time. And it was all very cute. I listened to the Luke Carvis and Jonathan Wald's episode of Crossword afterwards, and Jonathan described it as delightfully awkward, which I think sums it up. It was all very cute. I think it was a bit of fun.
It was a nice gimmick.
But it was the state of the word. It was jam packed. It was 2 hours long. There was a lot happening. Launching 6.9, the AI panel where they talked about all the building blocks and looking ahead to next year. There was and all of the education initiatives that Mary Hubbard talked about. There's been a lot in that area this year, but also the crossover with the TBPN podcast. Hope I got that right. That was interesting to see that 10-minute crossover with that tech podcast. It was a lot, yeah. But if you want a quicker, faster recap rather than watching 2 hours, just read my reporting. let me watch the 2 hour recording and summarize it for you.
There was a lot in there, but it was a nice event. It was a shame that the tech failed. What I found curious about the tech failing was that there was so little drama about that. People seemed to just sort of move on with their lives. And yet I imagine quite a lot of people actually were gathered in rooms because, especially in different parts of the world, people tend to make more of an evening of it, if you like. And everybody seemed to be quite sanguine about the fact that it wasn't working. I imagine, let's say, I don't know, the Prime Minister of the UK was going to deliver an address and it failed in that way. There'd be so much recrimination. But no, the WordPress community seems to be quite forgiving of tech failures. So there we go. That was nice. Right, 2 more to go. Penultimate one is WordPress. There's not really a lot to say here, but here we go. WordPress returns to 3 major releases in 2026, with the first of which will be WordPress 7.0. Is there anything in that? Is it just back to normal, I guess?
Yeah, I guess it's back to normal after the interruptions this year. Yeah, back to 3 releases. I mean, it was originally at the start of this year after, automatic pause contributions. WordPress leadership said that there'd only be 1 release of WordPress every year for the next 3 years and tied it to the WP Engine legal battle. But Matt has said in podcasts throughout the year that he was really sad that WordPress had scaled right back and there weren't cool new features coming, and he missed contributing to WordPress and being involved. So, legal battle be damned. Here we are.
Yeah.
WordPress is going ahead. And I guess, it would have been really hard. Can you imagine for him, it would have been hard to just sit back and watch all these things happening in AI and not be able to get into it. So, 3 releases next year. We'll see.
Sorry, apologies. Carry on.
Oh, no, I was about to say 7.0 is planned for March or April, and we'll see a release soon.
So maybe there's, I don't know, maybe people are more sanguine about the future and they're not quite so concerned about it. So this affords this to happen. When it was decided that we were going to go to just 1 release a year, maybe there was just that trepidation of what will the future look like. And now that the future is what it now is, maybe there's more of okay, this is possible. But also I think you're right. Getting AI and not having people steal the march on you in terms of AI probably means that this stuff needs to be iterated much more rapidly. So anyway, the long and the short is we're back to 7.0. And we're back to the last one, line 30. And who thought we would have been talking about Jetpack in the year 2025? But here we are. Jetpack is kind of still, I think, it's kind of one of those things that it kind of divides people. They either think it's great or they think, no, don't want to go near it. Devin Walker, who was one of the founders of GiveWP and has done a whole bunch of things since then. I did a podcast episode with him on the Tavern, and maybe I'll link to that. He has now become the artistic director. I love that title. It's so curious. Yep. He's the artistic director for Jetpack, and it seems like his role is to really go in and shake the tree a bit and see if they can turn what is, in terms of features, a really nice product, but in terms of UI and UX could be described as, difficult to get around, let's put it that way. Overlapping menus, things you can get to the same thing in multiple different ways. You've kind of got to log into .com for some things and not for others. It can be confusing. I think his job is to go in, shake it all so that the UI is much more straightforward. The product offering has some nice new features, but also that it's just straightforward to navigate and work your way around it. And feels like it could be red hot still. I have no reason to believe that feature set is of no interest to anybody, but it does seem like it's become a little bit of a leviathan and needs sorting out. So Devin is now doing that. I think I've said everything there. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I would just add that Devin posted an update on he's been on a bit of a one-man campaign to promote Jetpack in recent weeks since joining Automattic, and it was interesting to see. It's refreshing to see him being very upfront about Jetpack's problems. He's also being a bit defensive around some of what he's called like legacy criticisms of the plugin. He's identified that the marketing and comms lacks, and there's definitely a lot of room for improving the product. And I'm really interested to see how he tackles it. There's a lot of work,
he already released a video, didn't he, where he showed some of the new thoughts I can't remember what it was. Was it AI creating titles or something like that? I can't actually remember. But I remember just looking at it and thinking, okay, great. We're now getting demos of what might be that we can look at and commentate on. I haven't seen that in the longest time. Jetpack kind of felt like it was a thing that just existed with nobody really to steer that ship.
Yeah.
But I also think it could be a really profitable product if done right. I mean, if you think about the feature set that's in there, it really just by itself, it has the capacity to take on something like Substack, but it doesn't take on Substack because it just hasn't been aligned in that way. And now that we know that market for Substack is massive, it'd be interesting to see if it pivots into something a little bit more like that. So a whole ecosystem of itself. We'll see. There we go. I think we've done it, Ray. We've missed about half of it out, but an hour and 20 odd minutes.
Moves.
I think we've probably said.
WordPress moves so quickly.
Yeah.
Covering 3 months is like covering 3 years in WordPress.
Yeah. It's a lot, and no doubt if we do this again and we have an episode 6, no doubt there'll be more to say. Actually, I think there will be a lot to say at that point. We'll have 7 shipped by then, and there'll be a lot to talk about. So, thank you, Ray. Thanks for chatting to me today. I realise that I've kept you from your family and all of those kind of things, and apologies
all
for
asleep
that. And
now.
I appreciate it. Very, very grateful.
No, it's been absolute pleasure chatting. I'm glad we were able to fit this in before the end of the year.
Yeah. Get back on the wagon. So, all right, we'll join again in a few months' time. I will put all of the links into the show notes so that you can check them out, and make sure to go to therepository.email and sign up there as well. Thanks so much, Ray.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all we got time for this week. Hope that you have a fabulous holiday period if that is what you are doing. If not, I hope that you enjoy the period between now and when we're next on the air. We'll be back in January 2026 to bring you more regular podcast episodes and, of course, This Week in WordPress. Once more, a request from me: if you are in the WordPress space and you would like to get your product or service out in front of a pretty large WordPress-specific audience, drop me an email, admin@wpbuilds.com, and we'll see how we can shape your product or service's future in the year 2026. Okay, I'm going to fade in some cheesy music, say stay safe, see you in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye for now.